Hello and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Al24 News, streaming live from the capital Algiers, and coming up next in our news program. As the conflict reached its third month Tuesday, Moscow appears to be bogged down in what gradually looks like a war of attrition, with no end in sight and few successes on the battlefield. Leaders of US, Japan, India and Australia unveil Indo-Pacific Naval Surveillance Plan, pledge $50 billion in infrastructure investment in a bid to counter China. Severe floods in parts of Bangladesh and India have killed at least 24 people and left thousands of people displaced in the recent weeks. At least 300 migrants died and 4 were missing on Monday after people smuggling boat capsized in eastern Mexico. And those were today's top stories. The conflict in eastern Ukraine has intensified, with Russian forces increasing the military operation near the city of Severodonetsk, which is said to be a key target for the success for Moscow in capturing the Donbas region. Nabil Khazani has more to tell.
A withdrawal from the north meant for Russia that it has to put all of its forces into the battle in the east. The last territories of the Luhansk and Donetsk regions, still under Ukrainian control, may soon have the same destiny such as the one Mariupol was doomed to have.
The most difficult combat situation now is in the Donbas, Bakhmut, Popasnaya and Severodonetsk. In this direction, the occupiers concentrate the greatest activity at this time. They stage a massacre there and are trying to destroy all life. Literally, no one has destroyed the Donbas the way the Russian military is doing it now.
A chain of military forces positioning themselves in and around the region, firing at very specific targets. The smoke on the sky of the city of Severodonetsk is caused by severe bombardment on an oil refinery, causing it to collapse. And as shelling continues in eastern Ukraine, hardly any building stands safe in the Donetsk region. Civilians shelter in bunkers, with fear and uncertainty of when and if they can return home.
Зачем должны страдать гражданские люди? Зачем вот сейчас повыезжали, да, вот смотрите, сколько процентов, да, выезжает с людей, с населения. Ну, что, сколько они будут бегать, сколько они будут мотаться по Украине.
В том числе комплексных.
In Moscow, the Russian President Vladimir Putin, meanwhile, says he will have a serious talk with the West after being told he is to blame for everything. Back to Ukraine, in Kharkiv, the Russian Defense Ministry showed these images, a show of control from the Russian forces in a day marking the anniversary of a conflict entering a third month, with no concrete efforts to ease tensions in Ukraine. The Russian side blames Ukraine for hampering discussions and says Kiev would not accept any deal with Moscow that involved giving up territory.
In the first day of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky urged the leaders for financial help, including a complete halt with trade with Russia, 3 months after the start of this military operation. Hussam Burkan has more to tell about this story.
Welcome to the annual meeting 2022.
The founder of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, Klaus Schwab, officially opened its 2022 edition placed under the sign of solidarity with Ukraine. President Zelensky, the guest of honor, did not hesitate to ask for more weapons to Kiev and maximum sanctions against Moscow in a video call speech, 3 months after the start of the Russian adventure in Ukraine. Ukrainian president called also for faster international aid.
The faster the aid to the attacked country is provided, the more value it has. Arms funding, political support to us, and sanctions against Russia. That's what the sanctions should look like. They should be maximum, so that Russia and any other potential aggressor who wishes to wage a brutal war against its neighbor knows exactly what it leads to.
до чого це одразу призводить.
The first day of the World Economic Forum witnessed the participation of Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Ahmed Al Thani, who criticized harshly the discrimination Qatar has been subjected to, affirming that some cannot accept the idea of an Arab and Muslim country hosting and organizing the 2022 Football World Cup.
For decades now, the Middle East has suffered from discrimination. And I have found out that such discrimination is largely based on people not knowing us and in some cases refusing to get to know us. Even today, there are still people who cannot accept the idea that an Arab Muslim country would host a tournament like the World Cup. These individuals, including many in positions of influence, have launched attacks at a pace never seen before when a mega sporting event was hosted by other countries on different continents.
The founder of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, welcomed a particularly strong delegation of Ukraine, but on the other hand, excluded this year the Russians, who usually represent a large number of participants. The Ukrainian delegation has also transformed the house usually used by the Russian delegation into a Russian war crimes house, where an exhibition of photos of victims and damage caused by the conflict was inaugurated on Monday.
The first Russian soldier to be tried for war crime since the start of the Russian invasion in Ukraine was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison in Kiev for the murder of a civilian. His lawyer immediately announced that he would appeal. The 21-year-old Russian sergeant had admitted shooting dead a 62-year-old civilian in the northeast of the country during the first days of the conflict.
Well, first of all, the verdict has not come into effect yet. The fact that I'm preparing to file an appeal, of course, means that I believe it was passed with violations.
A Russian diplomat has resigned in protest against Moscow's venture in Ukraine, describing himself as ashamed of his country in a rare rejection by government official of President Vladimir Putin's special operation. Boris Bondarov, an arms control advisor to the Russian UN mission in Geneva, made the highly critical comments in a statement posted on social media accounts. President Joe Biden and his counterpart from Australia, India, as well as Japan have launched a naval initiative to combat illegal fishing and plan to invest at least $50 billion in developing infrastructure in 5 years as part of their efforts to counter China's growing influence. The pledge were announced on Tuesday after the four leaders met in Japanese capital Tokyo for a second in-person summit of the Indo-Pacific Quad grouping. The leaders claimed the Quad's goal of securing free and open Indo-Pacific have only been heightened by the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
In the infrastructure sector, we are announcing that we aim to invest more than $50 billion over the next 5 years to help projects in the Indo-Pacific region. In the context of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the four countries have reconfirmed the importance of the rule of law, sovereignty, and territorial unity, and these fundamental principles. We are also of agreement that unilateral attempts to change the status quo by force will never be tolerated anywhere.
Addressing business leaders at the World Economic Forum in Davos on Monday, Emir of Qatar Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani mentioned the case of Shireen Abu Akleh, the veteran Palestinian-American Al Jazeera correspondent who was killed by Zionist forces earlier this month in the occupied West Bank. He also urged those in attendance not to accept a world where the governments have double standards regarding the value of people based on their religion, region, or even race.
Shireen Abu Akleh, a Christian Palestinian American journalist, was killed 2 weeks ago in Palestine and then robbed of a dignified burial. Shireen was covering the suffering of the Palestinian people for decades, and our hearts are broken. Her death was just as horrific as the 7 journalists killed in Ukraine since March of this year, and 18 other journalists killed in Palestine since 2000, and many other journalists killed in the line of duty in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen.
Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki said that the ministry has submitted the file of the assassination of the journalist Shireen Abu Akleh to the International Criminal Court. Al-Maliki added in a statement carried by the ministry's official page on Facebook that the Zionist entity is exploiting the lack of accountability to commit more crimes. To a different matter now, severe floods in parts of Bangladesh and India have killed at least 24 people and left thousands of people displaced in recent weeks. And extreme weather events fueled by climate change become more frequent and intense across South Asia. Flood waters have submerged villages in the northeastern Indian state of Assam and have impacted roughly 2 million people in the Sylhet region of Bangladesh. According to medical experts, the rising number of confirmed and probable cases of monkeypox being reported in Europe and the United States has been described as highly unusual for a virus that is rarely seen outside of Africa. Specialists are trying to understand the sudden spread. Zara Farjani has more to tell.
Medical experts confirm the monkey case have been irregularly showing up in the US, the UK and in several other countries including Spain, Germany and Portugal, with the situation starting to puzzle professionals.
About the monkeypox from the outbreaks that have occurred in West and Central Africa, where it's always been located in those areas until to about 2018 when we had a couple of imported cases in the UK. But what is different this time is that we're seeing cases arising in persons who have not traveled to those areas in Africa.
According to US health officials, Florida reported a presumptive case of monkeypox, which was related to international travel, with the patient now in isolation. Medics say it is unusual how the current outbreak is spreading in the community.
So we're seeing some community transmission. So that is a bit unusual. And to see it in so many countries across the world, again, is an unusual feature for this latest outbreak of monkeypox.
UK health authorities says the UK Health Security Agency has detected 36 additional cases of monkeypox in England, bringing the total number of confirmed cases to 56 since the first was reported on May 7th. Director of the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control explains the necessity of vaccines.
Countries should also update their contact tracing mechanisms and their diagnostic capacity and review the availability of smallpox vaccines, antivirals, and personal protective equipment for health professionals.
The virus can enter the body through broken skin, the respiratory tract, or through the eyes, nose, or mouth. It can also be passed through mother-to-child transmission and sexual transmission. The incubation period of the disease usually lasts between 6 to 13 days, sometimes extending to 21 days. Most patients should make a recovery within weeks.
Baghdad's streets were empty of people on Monday as massive sandstorm hit the Iraqi capital and several other provinces in the country. A thick blanket of dust covered roads and buildings in Baghdad with an orange film. Drivers kept car headlights on to see the road during the latest sandstorm to engulf the country. The authorities have declared a day off at schools and universities, and airports in Baghdad and southern provinces were shut down. Hundreds of Iranians attended a funeral march for Hassan Sayyid Khudai, a senior Revolutionary Guard member killed on Sunday. There has been no claim of responsibility for the killing carried out on Sunday afternoon by two unknown gunmen on a motorbike. They shot Khudai 5 times in his car. 3 people were killed and 3 others injured after a drone hit a commercial area in Yemeni capital Sana'a. Yemeni rebel forces said it is related to Saudi-led coalition. The incident took place during the ceasefire agreement between the warring parties that expires on June 2nd and which the United Nations Special Envoy for Yemen is seeking to extend. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said on Monday Ankara would soon launch new military operation along its southern border. Mr. Erdogan said that military would aim to create a 30-kilometer safe zone along its border with Syria. The operation will likely target north of Syria, where Turkey has launched several military operations since 2016 to undermine the Kurdish People's Defense units. Same line of thoughts, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said that Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis no longer excited for him after he visited the United States and accused Greece's Prime Minister of trying to block sales of F-16 fighter jets to Turkey.
We were going to hold a strategic council meeting this year. He no longer exists for me. I will never agree to have that meeting with him. We will continue our way with honorable politicians.
An opposition politician in Uganda has been detained while protesting against high food and fuel prices for the second time in a week. This comes after President Yoweri Museveni rejected the idea of funding or reducing taxes on fuel.
A Ugandan opposition figure who is calling for street protests against rising commodity prices is being detained inside his home by police. Kizza Besigye, a 4-time presidential candidate, has been unable to leave his home outside the capital Kampala since May 12th, with police pitching camp nearby to enforce his apparent house arrest. Ugandan police routinely detain opposition figures inside their homes, insisting they can impose preventive arrest to maintain public order.
The crisis of the people that a government cannot respond to is in itself an indication that that government can no longer sustain itself.
Besigye's detention followed his call for Ugandans to wake up and protest against rising commodity prices that the government blames mostly on the war in Ukraine, a major supplier of grain and edible oils. Besigye is a serial campaigner against the government of longtime President Yoweri Museveni. His walk-to-work protest movement following the 2011 presidential election, also sparked by inflationary commodity prices, was violently stopped within months.
I hope that you actively reach out to all formations to see that we move together. Especially now our brothers who are in the unity platform, national unity platform, there is absolutely no reason why we should not all move together.
Besigye's current home confinement has drawn anger from his followers, and there are growing calls by activists and others for the government to intervene, possibly by removing taxes on everything from cooking oil to gas. But authorities are ruling this out and urging the people to tighten their belts.
Staying in Africa and on his first trip to Africa, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz described the ghazal mission in Niger as a success and called for a possible extension to the cooperation along with his Nigerian counterpart, Mohamed Bazoum. Islam Seed on Watch Follow.
After a meeting in Niamey with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Niger's President Mohamed Bazoum praised military cooperation with Germany as a model to be followed by other partners. The Nigerian head of state has also called for an extension of the Ghazal mission, which ends later this year.
I asked the German Chancellor that we see together how to extend the Ghazal mission in order to get the most out of it. This is something that our army presents as a model of things to do with all our other partners. Mr. Chancellor, I would really like to congratulate you. This work we have done together is a work that is now really going to be the model to which we're going to push all our other partners.
On the other hand, Olaf Scholz visited the German soldiers of the Ghazal in the region of Taawa and witnessed the success of the mission, which he said it is a motivation to continue the cooperation between the two countries.
The Ghazal mission that we have already talked about, where we have activities between Germany and Niger, that I was able to visit today, and I saw with my own eyes how successful it really is, and I have seen how good a close cooperation it is in the long run. Really was a great success.
Meanwhile, he recalled that his country was ready to continue to provide its contribution to the United Nations mission in the Sahel region.
It is true that the security situation in the Sahel is very difficult. There is also the United Nations mission in Mali, so MINUSMA contribution, and there really needs to be good cooperation to ensure security in the region. It is clear that this situation will not improve with the pressure of Russian mercenaries in Mali. It is all the more important to have a very good cooperation here with you.
Several countries in the Sahel, Mali, Niger and Burkina Faso, are threatened by the conflict and activities conducted by the rebels, which also loom to destabilize several countries in the Gulf of Guinea further south.
Soaring food prices, unprecedented drought and conflicts are driving the alarming rise in hunger in Somalia, where 6 regions could face famine this year. Across the country, fuel costs have doubled in the last month, and the price of food are continuing to climb, in part due to the impacts of the war in Ukraine. Somalia lives the most severe hunger crisis in 30 years, as 6 million are threatened with food insecurity. 1.4 among 6 million are children. Bachelet, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, arrived in China on Monday amid worries that it may result in ratification of China's rights record. Bachelet will travel to Xinjiang, where the High Commissioner's office stated last year that the largely Muslim ethnic Uyghurs were arrested, abused and forced to labor. However, China's foreign ministry welcomed her but rejected political manipulation when asked if she might visit detention centers where rights groups said Uyghurs have been abused. In Mexico, the governor of the coastal state of Veracruz said Monday that 300 migrants drowned off Mexico's Gulf Coast and 4 were still missing. The search for the missing migrants, including efforts by the Mexican Navy, is taking place. Meanwhile, many thousands of migrants cross Mexico each year on a journey during which they face multiple dangers, including road accidents, drowning, and crime. To avoid attracting the attention of the police in Guatemala, illegal migrants trying to reach the United States now move forward in small groups and crossing rivers. More details with KFC.
To avoid attracting the attention of the police in Guatemala, illegal migrants are trying now to reach the United States by moving forward in small groups. Some travel with friends, others, like Gilberto, a 27-year-old Venezuelan, with their dog. They are getting on a raft to cross the border between Guatemala and Mexico.
Yes, it's my little dog. His name is Negro. He's from Venezuela. He's been through everything like us. He eats the same things as us. He's a migrant too.
They are crossing the Sochate River, border between Guatemala and Mexico, to avoid migration controls. Some people prefer to cross the river on foot.
These caravans of migrants dissipate into several groups. Then on the Mexican side, they gather in large numbers.
As we did, passing through mountains, rivers, ravines, crossing bushes, we're no longer afraid of anything. We've already had sore feet. We have been sick. We have had to suffer from everything. So we're used to it. We're going through the same thing. Like we went through Honduras, Guatemala, we're going through Mexico.
Everyone wants to find work in the United States to send money to their families and then bring them to live with them. Here, the police are checking vehicles and buses for migrants. They keep watching and systematically checking passengers' papers. But the migrants keep flowing.
To this end, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a reminder for our main top stories. As the conflict reached its 3rd month Tuesday, Moscow appears to be bogged down in what gradually looks like a war of attrition with no end in sight and few successes on the battlefield. Leaders of US, Japan, India, and Australia unveiled Indo-Pacific Naval Surveillance Plan, pledged $50 billion in infrastructure investments in bid to counter China. Severe floods in parts of Bangladesh and India have killed at least 24 people and left thousands of people displaced in recent weeks. As at least 3 Honduran migrants died and 4 were missing on Monday after a people smuggling boat capsized in eastern Mexico. That's all for now. Thank you so much for being with us. Take care of yourself and bye-bye.